he literally says, okay, so my goal for this next business is I want to sell it within 8 years for X dollars because it has Y, and then all of these variables underneath it. And he really starts to back in from the very end. I'm sure you started thinking about this more after you fundraised because, you take people's money, they want a return as well. Did you think about this though before that?
Okay, so before we fundraise, so when you think about fundraising, you're thinking about an exit, right? So you take on capital because you hope that someday someone's going to buy you. So you have to start to reimagine it, I think is what you're alluding to, Bruce, right? Mm-hmm. Before that, I was just running a printing company that I wanted to make as big as possible, right? And I think I had goals, but I don't think I had endpoints and like a flag in the ground to say like, that's what I want here and here and here. The difference is once we took on an investment, we knew we started to create like this formula where it was like, okay, if we want to sell our company for this much, that means it has to be doing this much in revenue and this much in profit. In order to do this much in revenue, this is the model that we have to follow to get to there. So, it forced me to think through that and think 3 years, 5 years, 10 years down the road and actually put pen to paper on it. But I also think that does that answer your question, Bruce?
Yeah. It's interesting though, because I felt like the same of, I just want the biggest, like I want us to take over this space. I think we can help a tons of shops. I could see our path from 1 million and I could see it to 3 million and 5 million, 10 million and so on. And I think that is a confusing end goal though, right? Because it doesn't take into account all the other factors. It doesn't take into account the profitability. It doesn't take into account your lifestyle and what you want there. It was just growth almost at all costs in a way, which wears on people. And I see a lot of shops, especially in this space, it's like, I realized I swung past the goalpost. Like I literally, 2 years ago, back when we were this size with this number of people, that was the golden goose. That's where we should have been because we were most profitable. And that's what I enjoy doing because now I've got this huge team. I've got all this stuff. I've got these headaches. We've got multiple shifts and so on.
Bruce, there's also a book. It's written by the COO of 1-800-GOT-JUNK, which is a really cool story. Mm-hmm. There's an awesome How I Built This on it. And he talks about creating a vivid vision. Have you ever heard of that?
No.
Where you write out on one page exactly what you envision your company to be 3 years from now. Like the look, the feel, the office, the profitability, the numbers, what your lifestyle is going to be like in the business, like the emotions of the business. And you try to almost put it on like you're you're painting a picture of it. And I think something that Rob did really well is he's like in my, I have a vision board and I Photoshop it. And I actually draw the future state and I show it to my wife and we put it up on the fridge kind of thing. I think the practice of doing that seems so cheeky and corny, but like he really, really spends a lot of time in that future state. And then the building blocks seem so simple to him because he's like, now I just have to create the ladder to get there and the stairs. And it's probably easier when you're doing it for your second or third time around in business, right? I'm sure he made a lot of mistakes. He made a ton of mistakes. So it's definitely easier your second or third time. But how many small business owners do you think really create like vision boards? Did you have one?
No. Again, it was just a focus of day to day, week to week of plowing through. And maybe there's a time for that. Like maybe there's a moment where, okay, until you get to X revenue or Y point in time in your life, there's definitely a time where you have to overinvest, a time when you're just trying to shovel dirt out of the hole over and over again. I'm not exactly sure when that transition is, but we definitely passed it. Like we way past it where I should have thought to myself, what do you want from the business in the end? Is it, and I think there's really two questions, right? It's either I want it to cash flow and I want to have a good lifestyle, or I want to sell it and I want to do something else or, take a break, whatever it is. It would have been more beneficial to spend a bit more time thinking about that. And I think planning towards that in a way of the questions could be, okay, well then what is the revenue? And if I want to cash flow it, what's the margin? What's the income I want to make as an owner? What's our focus, of the industry that I enjoy talking to the people? What does the team structure look like? So I do have that lifestyle that backs that up, right? Because then it's easy to violate. You don't. I think then you don't violate those rules as easily. Like, oh, I'm going to take this on, or I'm going to look into this space, or I'm going to do this additional work. Well, that violates this roadmap plan, this longer term plan.
I think okay, Bruce, did you think you were going to sell print? If you were to look 5 years ago, did you think you were going to sell Printavo? Was it a surprise? Was it planned? Was it thoughtful?
No.
It wasn't.
No, none of that. No.
So I also was listening to, I'm going to play devil's advocate for a second.
And not in a way where that was purposeful in a no answer. It was just that it wasn't planned or thought through. And in my opinion, it should have been more so. Anyway, what were you listening to?
I was listening to the guys from Basecamp. They write the book Rework, right?
I love that book.
And there's a website called 37signals.com. And they basically have their ethos of how they operate. And they're such a cool company. And he says, plans are guesses. The long term, the plan, the worse the guess. Replace years with weeks. 3-year plan, make it a 3-week plan. 10-year plan, make it a 10-week plan. Plan more often, not less often. The near term your plans, the more accurate they'll be.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's literally coming like a month after listening to Rob Dyrdek, where he's reverse engineering and starting with the end.
It's totally opposite.